Hello, friends, and thanks for tuning in to this personal and special episode of the Fat Feminist Witch podcast. Today I'm talking about my pet rabbit, Jimmy Hoppa, who passed away about a month ago. Today would have been his 9th birthday, the 9th of May 2019, which is real fun. And I'm pretty sure all of you are either animal lovers or are cool with animal lovers, so I'm not really embarrassed to say that I'm pretty sad. It sounds so silly to say it like that. It sounds so simple, but I am. I'm really sad. I'm really bummed out, and I've found that being really, really sad about it has been pretty distracting. So, to help, I've been trying to think of the stuff that I actually have to do as a distraction from being sad so that I can actually get back to work. Just gotta trick myself a little bit. I'm sure you guys can relate. And so when I actually decided to do this episode a couple weeks back, I was in full-on distraction mode, and I really thought that I was going to come on here and put out an episode about rabbit magic and spells with just kind of about Jimmy, maybe I'd say a little something at the end, but I realized that's not really what I needed. That's not really what I need. That stuff's really great. It's all great, but that was me just trying to distract myself while also still talking about what's bothering me. It's a coping mechanism, right? We all got that shit. Every time we want to talk about something unpleasant, our brains will find ways to make it easier. But one of my first episodes of Seeker's Corner, the live show I do on Facebook, is titled Rabbit Magic, and I do talk about things like correspondences with bunnies and legends and how to work with magic with rabbits or hares or as symbols or totems. And, Jimmy features in the episode. I actually hold him, which is really cute. And so I decided to watch that to get my notes together for this episode after I made the event and all that stuff. Because I make the Facebook event so that it'll force me to finish up the episode. It's outrageous. So I'm organized, but only in a way that I could follow. It's really brutal. But anyways, I decided to watch the episode, to reminisce and have a little fun, see Jimmy, and put my notes together. And watching this episode, and I was laughing so hard because he bites me. The second I finished saying that rabbits contribute a really chill and happy energy to the home, he just bites the super soft meat in the upper arm right by your armpit. Kills, man. It hurt so bad, and I had a purple bruise for a little while. But I was just cracking up because that is so Jimmy. What a Jimmy thing to do, right? Was to bite me right after I say something nice. And then he proceeded to stare me down and give me the evil eye while I was doing the whole rest of the episode. And it kind of just made me realize how hard I was working to talk about Jimmy and rabbits, but not talk about Jimmy and how I felt. Kind of lame, but whatever. I was trying to channel my feelings into something useful, but that's just, feelings are already useful. They're useful as they need to be, feelings are a thing already. I don't really need to channel them into work to make them valid or to make them worth paying attention to. Feeling stuff's really important. It's really important for me to feel stuff. I gotta get it out. I can't bottle it up. And then honoring those feelings is really important. Honoring your right to feel that stuff and why you feel that stuff. And for me, sharing a lot of those feelings has become a really, really important tool for me to heal or to feel better, or to just, feel connected to people. And this is going to sound really weird, but I can be pretty quiet in person, and I often really struggle to talk about my feelings out loud. It sounds weird because I talk for a living, and I talk about myself a lot. I talk about personal things, and I really do share very genuine feelings on this podcast, and it's because being very vulnerable like that in person is very hard. But right here with the microphone, you're not looking me in the eyeballs, and I don't have to wonder if you're going to be shocked or horrified, because if you're shocked or horrified, I might never even have to know, you know what I mean? But at the same time, those of you who do really, always let me that you do, or always let me know that you do, that you understand, and that you are listening. So talking about myself on the podcast is a lot easier, and through the podcast is very easy. I realized that I got to stop trying to get rid of that from the podcast, right? I spend a lot of time sometimes thinking like, oh, this is too personal. It's not going to appeal to everybody. They want to hear something they can all actually use. But, I constantly get messages and you guys tell me things like you appreciate when I'm honest and you appreciate that I share personal things and that I share, how emotionally vulnerable I really can be because I'm a very soft, gooey kind of person, right? I just put up this kind of tough front in person, but I'm a really soft, gooey person. So through the show and through all you guys, I've realized, that being able to be vulnerable is a kind of strength. And actually, it's really cool. Yesterday, the day before, someone I follow online, it's Gabriella Herstick. She wrote Inner Witch or The Craft, depending on when you bought the book. She just tweeted out that vulnerability is erotic, and someone else was like, yeah, it's really hard to be vulnerable. It's very strong to be vulnerable around other people, and that's a very intense emotion. And it goes along so well with, the things that I'd been thinking about this episode. So I decided instead of just, putting on the podcast voice and listing a bunch of herbs that are associated with rabbits or like talking about magicians and pulling rabbits out of their hats. I just decided that that's not, I don't really need to do that right now. I don't really need to do that again. It's all in the Seeker's Corner episode and it is fun. It's silly. Jimmy's there. So I make a lot of jokes about him the whole time. And it was kind of a long time ago. So I look really different and I wasn't super good on camera. So it's very entertaining. So I'm just, instead of just talking about rabbits, I'm going to talk about Jimmy. I'm going to talk about him specifically. And I'm going to talk about what he meant to me. And the energy that he brought into my life and my home. And oh my God, I'm already getting teary. This is ridiculous. Sorry. And I had an oddly beautiful experience, being able to say goodbye. Having a pet just die of old age is really wild. Like, it doesn't always happen. So many of us end up, being compassionate and taking our pets to the vets when it's getting to be that time. But it happened kind of suddenly, and that wasn't the way it happened. It happened at home, and it was actually just a really sad but beautiful experience. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. And, about some of the magical ways that I, said goodbye and have been healing and stuff ever since. I write a script for most of my episodes, all the ones that I've put out in the last at least 2 years. I write it out in advance and, I read it along, but when I write it out, I'm talking it. So it's like, I'm typing out what I say and then I re-say it all. Anyways, it's a script. I don't have a script this time. I just have, I've been journaling a lot. Like a lot. It's really great because I always wanted to be into journaling, but I just couldn't make myself do it. And now I'm finding it really, really helpful. So I've been journaling a lot. So I hand wrote all of this stuff out in my journal for this episode instead of, typing it, being super professional. I went kind of low key this time. So it'll be a little bit shorter maybe, and you may get some more of those weepy moments. And then I might make jokes that might sound inappropriate or kind of crass because I'm nervous and I'm really sad, and I try to make myself laugh, and sometimes it comes out really lame. Really lame. I'm not doing ads or anything either. No, I'm not going to plug my stuff at you, except for that Seeker's Corner episode featuring Jimmy, his debut. So I hope you all still like it. So if you came here for, practical uses of rabbit magic, you might want to go over to my Facebook page or to my YouTube to find that Seeker's Corner episode. Otherwise, if you're willing to sit here and listen to me tell you about my bunny and what it was like to live with him, and what kind of effect he had on me and on my magical practice, that's what I'm doing today. So I got Jimmy His name wasn't Jimmy yet, but I got him in the February of 2012. I just moved home back to Ontario from living in Vancouver. It was a very awful experience, very awful. And when I came home, I had no idea what I was doing or where my life was going or what my plan was or how I was even going to cope with the experience of Vancouver itself. And I got Jimmy like within the month after I got home. But he was actually born on May 9th in 2010. His original name was Yeti, like the snowman, because he was pretty much all white. He had a little bit of gray on his nose and his ears and his tail. But he was mostly white, and he was one of the bigger babies, I guess, in the litter of baby rabbits. And I know all of this because in my second semester of college, which was like a year or a year and a half later, a classmate saw a picture. I was showing him off, and she realized that her family had been Jimmy's original owner. So they had his parents, and those rabbits ended up mating because they weren't given correct information about their the sex of each rabbit. So they ended up with a whole mess of rabbits. And that's just how rabbits work. It's not just a joke. They breed all the time, and they can breed quickly after having litters. So they have lots of babies. And so all of a sudden there's lots of rabbits, and they couldn't all get really personal attention, like physical handling. And Yeti, I guess, was very quick, and I can attest to this because he was quick later in life too. Trust me. Even near the end, he was fast. It was outrageous. So he didn't get a lot of handling, and he wasn't really into being picked up before he went to his new home with a teenage boy whose mother I had known for years because we had worked at Tim Hortons together. I hadn't actually even seen her since before I had been to Vancouver, so it was quite a while that I saw her, and we were just hanging out, catching up. And she knew I loved animals because she had cats and dogs, and I was always, chasing them around and petting them and stuff. And I'm not shy about how much I love animals. I've been an animal person forever. As a small child, I loved going to the vet. I still have the same family vet. Like, the vet I saw with Jimmy is the daughter of my vet from when I was a kid, and it's so cute. But I love going to the vet because I would go in the back and he'd let me help with the animals. I've always loved animals, and I'm pretty fortunate that a lot of animals like me. Usually they're animals that kind of have some behavioral problems or have been abused or abandoned or something. I have a really funny story about a horse that maybe I'll tell all you guys later, but I loved animals forever. So she's like, oh yeah, my son, he's got like 5 rabbits upstairs. They're all really cute. Do you want to come check them out? Of course I want to come check out your rabbits, Karen. Let's go. Why aren't we already up there? Like, I'd been at her house for a whole hour. What's going on? Where's these rabbits? So we get up there, and there's all these really, really cute rabbits. I couldn't describe a single one of them to you now, because the second that I saw Jimmy, this adorable, grumpy ass, bright white fluff ball with floppy ears, like, I squealed out loud. I was totally in love. Floppy eared bunnies are just, they're my shit, you guys. They're the cutest, just the cutest animal in the world. And all the other bunnies had sticking up ears, right? Very, very normal. I had to go with the crazy bunny. And of course, my friend is a crafty bitch. I ended up with a pet another time because of her, but again, that's another story. And quickly told me that they were hoping to get rid of some of these bunnies. They needed to find new homes. And, if I wanted to take one of them home, it was totally free. I could have the cage and whatever food and litter and stuff that they had for me. And like, son of a bitch, now I've got a rabbit. Like, I remember turning it to her and I was like, oh, you did this on purpose. How could you? Of course I'm going to take a rabbit. It was awful. It's not really her fault though. I've been a lifelong bunny. Love her specifically. Love animals, but bunnies and I have a special connection. Like, I've tried to have pet bunnies before, and we never really got along. The first ones I had were a little too wild. They'd been found outside, and they were like wild bunnies. So keeping them wasn't really, they didn't like it. They weren't happy. So, we found a place that, it was a farm. We found a place, and it was an actual farm, but they had a lot of land, and there was lots of wild rabbits. So, had him join the little rabbit community. Or at least I hope that's what happened, because I'm realizing now, this happens in movies and shows all the time. A kid grows up and describes how their pet went to live on a farm. Now I'm freaking out a little bit. Anyways, so I had these wild rabbits and it didn't work out. And, years later we tried to get another rabbit. It was a boy rabbit, and he was super territorial, and he went to the bathroom all over the place, and he didn't like any of us really, except for my mom. It was just not a good fit. And so I'd stopped trying to have pet rabbits, and instead just, enjoyed rabbits in their natural habitat. But I'd always loved bunnies. As a kid, I read the storybook copy of The Velveteen Rabbit so many times that before I was even 10 years old, my mother had to replace the book twice, because it was opening and closing and sleeping with it and dragging it everywhere. It was falling apart. There was pages missing. It was so brutal. And ditto to any sort of VHS copy of any sort of movie made about the Velveteen Rabbit, all of those little, cartoon versions. If I was sick at home, or if I was really, really sad, because my depression started at a pretty young age, the more I think about it. Days when I was super sad, I would marathon watch The Velveteen Rabbit. It's incredibly sad of a movie. It's such a stupid thing to do, but they say that listening to sad music when you're sad actually helps because it validates your feelings, and I feel like that's what I was doing as a child. I was just ahead of my time. Thanks to that Velveteen Rabbit, this horrible problem that plagued me as a child, where there's this part of my brain that I cannot turn off that fully thinks, yeah, it's possible that my stuffed animals are actually sentient beings with feelings. It's not, but come on. And I really always felt like there was a possibility that my stuffed animals could feel abandoned, or I didn't love them. I would never get rid of a stuffed animal. I wouldn't put them in the closet. I always made sure that they knew I loved them. It was really cute looking back, but also weird. Definitely set me up for the future that I had. And if in the middle of the night, if I kicked any stuffed animals out of my bed in my sleep, especially if they were a rabbit, in the morning, I was just beside myself, just tearfully apologizing to this stuffed animal. And I felt guilty all day. And I remember it. It's so brutal, and it's so silly to say out loud. I'm just obviously a really sensitive person. But I loved my bunnies, and I loved that, I don't know, there was a lot of heart and soul in that movie, in that story, the book, everything. I really related to the story a lot, to the bunny specifically, of course. And actually, years earlier, when I was really small, I learned to read on a book about rabbits called Leo the Lop. It was about one bunny. His name was Leo. And he was the only bunny in his whole little burrow, with hanging down ears. And everybody else had the sticking up floppy ears. And, the whole story was about how he's bullied for being different. And in the end, he realizes that he's awesome and that being a little bit different is cool. It's classic kid story, right? And that was another book that my parents had to replace. And then I eventually actually bought myself another copy after I destroyed it a second time. Even as a teen. So that was another one that I wore out. Like I said, I really related to the rabbits because I was a very weird kid. I was always a little bit weird and witchy, right? Obviously. And my home was kind of difficult. It wasn't always very happy. And I specifically, I really related to that feeling of being abandoned or broken and tossed aside or, ignored. So the rabbits in the stories were super, super relatable to me. And that just kind of translated into rabbits in general. I felt, a connection with rabbits. Rabbits are really soft. They're really sensitive. Even physically, their skin is really soft. Their fur is really soft, but they're very sensitive. They're a prey animal because they're incredibly easy to kill. And that sounds gross. I'm sorry if that bums you out, but it's unfortunately the truth. Their skin is soft. Their bones are tiny and weird. They're a weird shape, right? If you ever look at like the shape of a rabbit inside there, it's bizarre. It's like a frog covered in fur. But, you know, they're breakable and they're soft and they're sensitive and they're scared. But that's what makes rabbits. That's what makes them bunnies. You know, that's what we all love about bunnies, is that they are soft and they are sweet and they're kind of skittish and scared, but they're very curious and lovable. You know, that's the bunny vibe. I still really feel that. I see bunnies as this symbol of softness, you know, not just physically soft, but oh my God, the fur. Jimmy was so soft. Every time I pet him, it was like I didn't want to... I wish I could transfer that feeling to my whole body without having to wear fur, because he was so soft and lovely. But also, you know, inner softness. And that was a positive thing, because that's what we like about bunnies. We like that bunnies are soft and sensitive and sweet. So that day, there was no way I was going home without a rabbit, and she tricked me, but that's okay. And later that night, I watched him. He was sitting in his cage, and I was just watching him. And he cleaned his face and his ears for the first time. And I literally cried. Like, literal tears came out, because it was so cute. And I was so excited. I was so excited. He, of course, turned out to be pretty difficult. But what I've learned is that bunnies are... If you're used to having cats and dogs, a rabbit is a very different kind of friend, and there is a very different process for learning to live with a bunny friend. You know, he was so cute, and he was really chill. I loved watching him, you know, just hop in his cage and stuff like that. He lived in the cage for the first year and a half or so. After that, I let him run free, and he's been a free roam bunny ever since. It's the best decision I ever made. He was so cute, follow me around, and, you know, he would sit under my desk by my feet while I was working or doing homework, and, you know, because I was in college. And, you know, he made himself a little spot to sleep right next to my bed, right next to where my pillows are, so that, you know, we were always sleeping together, even though he didn't want to come up on the bed, on the furniture. So he was great. And his name was Yeti, like I said, and that was pretty cute. But I was really into the celebrity pun names at the time. And I had a cat at the time named Neil Patrick Harris, who the same friend tricked me into adopting. He was wonderful too. Turns out she really knew the kind of animals that I would like. That's a good friend. So the rabbit, right, he needed something great that kind of matched. And Jimmy Hoppa is who he's named after. Not an amazing dude or anything like that. But Jimmy Hoppa is a local legend, right? Everyone near or in Detroit has a theory about where Hoffa's buried, or even if he's buried. You know, it's this local mystery. It's this local mystery legend. And it's so fit because Jimmy Hoppa had kind of an unlikable personality. He, you know, you could argue that he wasn't even a bad dude, or that he was a bad dude, whatever. But his personality in general was kind of unlikable. And a lot of that is because he didn't shut up. He kept talking. And, you know, he liked to fight. He liked to get into arguments. And of course, his famous disappearing act. So it was perfect for an animal who was kind of surly and who grunted every time you touched him or got a little too close, and could somehow completely disappear in my small apartment. Even though he was bright ass white and nothing else is, I could look around here for 2 hours and not find him, and then he'd just slowly come hopping out of nowhere. Bunnies are so stealthy. So he became Jimmy Hoppa. Never regretted it. It makes people laugh. It still makes me laugh every time. So he didn't really like cuddling, and he didn't really like being touched. He didn't want to come up on the furniture or sit with you or whatever. And a lot of people had a lot of opinions about Jimmy. And even I listened a little bit to some of them. You know, people would say things like, I can't believe, you know, you're willing to have a pet that won't snuggle with you, that won't let you snuggle. You know, what's the point of having a pet if you can't snuggle it? And I mean, it was painful to have this adorable little animal that you know is like the softest thing in the whole world that you can't just like pick up and cuddle. It sucks. But when people would say that, I was like, wait a minute, that's messed up. What a weird thing to say, because I don't think I would say that the only reason I like to live with animals is because, you know, they cuddle with me in a way that I like. Like, that's not really what the whole relationship is about, right? I make a genuine connection with animals. And so it made me think a lot more about what animals bring to my life, and not just the animals I bring home, but animals in general all around me. You know what? I've never been a bird person, and since I got Jimmy in the last few years, I can tell you every single kind of bird that stops by my house, and there are so many. I have certain blue jays that follow me around and leave me feathers. I have a hawk that like a hawk. I live downtown, and every summer I see a hawk who looks kind of the same. And last year, this hawk dropped a feather right where I was walking. Nuts. So, you know, it's made me consider how I value animals just a little bit more. And like I said, I've always been an animal lover, and I never thought I had to think about that more. But I had to be a little bit creative, right? And I had to try to read Jimmy's behavior, because they were kind of right about one thing, which is that I didn't know if he liked me or not, or if he liked, you know, living here. Of course, animals can't speak English. They can't just tell me whether they like it or you know, whatever. You know, I don't really like this brand of pellets. That would be super helpful. But with a lot of other pets, you know, cats and dogs, if they snuggle up with you and they're comfortable and they want to pet you and be near you, or they want to be pet and be near you, you know, that's a sign that they like you. But Jimmy doesn't like that stuff. Does that mean he doesn't like me? And I couldn't accept that. That must be what it means, you know. So I started paying a little bit more attention to the other stuff that Jimmy did. And I still vividly remember the moment that I realized that Jimmy really loved me and really liked, you know, our little life together. And I had this rabbit for 2 years before I had this moment. So, so I was very, very patient, but 2 years, and we were at the park. I didn't do it a lot, but sometimes I would put Jimmy on a little harness and a leash and put him in his carrier, and I'd take him to the park down by the river and let him hop in the grass and eat dandelions and, you know, whatever, visit with people. People thought he was really cute, because he was, and they wanted to take his picture, and that was fine. They couldn't touch him, but they could take his picture, so that was fine. But we were just, you know, we were chilling in the grass, and he was on a leash, and he was as far away from me as the leash would let him go. But someone was walking on a path nearby, and they had a dog. And the dog was pretty chill, but then it saw Jimmy, and it barked a couple times, and it, you know, tried to get a little bit closer to check him out, and Jimmy got real scared. His eyes got all wide, and his ears, even like the muscles in his ears just like flinched, and his ears kind of went out for a second. Real funny. And he ran real fast right to me, and he got a little behind me, and he sat down right near my leg until he felt safe enough to move around again, until the dog was gone. And I just like, I was so excited. I was sitting there, and I was like, oh my God, he got scared. He was in danger, you know, and he had to run to safety, and he came right to me. Didn't hesitate at all, ran right to me and got behind me and knew that I would keep him safe. You know, rabbits run home when they're scared, and he ran right to me. I was home, and I made him feel safe. And that was the best feeling. Like I said, I totally remember it, because it was just this instant moment, like, okay, man, I get it. You know, I'm not just spinning my wheels here. I'm doing, you know, I'm doing good. You like your life, you whatever. So it was just really interesting, because it was so much more, I don't know, it was a lot more memorable than some of the other experiences I've had where I realized my pet liked me, especially because it took so long, 2 years. And, if anyone can respect, needing personal space and not like being touched, it's no hugs, please. I like handshakes page. Like I have a really great handshake that I perfected on purpose so I didn't have to hug people anymore. I really hate hugging like old guys in suits. Or like I'm Italian, so a lot of Italian old men want to hug, and they think that my desire to shake hands is like a cute novelty and I get away with it. So I don't like being touched. That's cool. I can respect this, Jimmy. And now I can see that there's other ways that I can, find out what you're thinking or feeling about me that work for you. And that aren't just about me and my needs. And I like that. And yet again, I was in this position where I felt uniquely able to relate to a rabbit and the way that it expresses itself, especially with a difficult emotion like fear. And I feel like this isn't the last time that's going to happen. I still super love bunnies. And I would love to have another bunny someday eventually. Anyway, this makes Jimmy sound kind of boring, but he was so fun. Honestly, even I didn't realize how much time I spent just focused on Jimmy. Like some TV shows that I thought were 20 minutes are actually 40 minutes. And it turns out I just spent a lot of time paying attention to Jimmy instead of the TV show. He liked to play with a beach ball. I got those big beach balls that have things inside. So the last one had a seahorse that, flops around inside when he pushes it around with his nose. And he would actually, we'd roll it along the floor and he'd go get it and bring it back. He'd play fetch with this giant beach ball and just push it with his nose. I have a lot of pictures up, I'm sure, but I'm sure I'll collect some for for when you read this on the blog, the description here. He was such a cutie pie. We played fetch and I loved sharing snacks with Jimmy. He loved to eat food that was unhealthy for him, like cereal or caramel or graham crackers. Those aren't good for bunnies and they shouldn't eat them. And bunnies are supposed to be vegan and caramel's not vegan. But, he could eat all the veggies and the greens and stuff that I could get him. And so we started sharing snacks. I love bananas and I started having a banana every morning, and Jimmy just he's not leaving that banana alone. So every morning we share a banana. And in the afternoon, I'll grab one of those nice big carrots and I'll munch on it. And every now and then I'll just hold it down and he would come and he would munch on some of the carrot, or I'd give him all the leafy tops and I'd eat the carrot. My friend has a garden and she started bringing him, carrots and carrot tops. And it was just, I actually started buying and eating more veggies and like fresh herbs instead of dried ones, just because I knew I could give them to Jimmy as treats and that, we could share them. I went from being someone who never ate their vegetables. It was such a chore to get me to eat vegetables, even as a older teen and young adult. And now I eat so many vegetables. Some of my meals are strictly vegetables, but they have to be raw. I remember when I told my mom this, and I was like, I think this is Jimmy's influence, He's turning me into he's making me eat rabbit food. She laughed when I told her, because she told me that when I was a small baby, she had a small little veggie garden in the back, just a few rows. And she'd go out there to pull weeds, and I'd be in my little, my diaper or whatever. Must have been the summer after I was born. And she'd just kind of plunk me down to pull some weeds and spend some time in the sun. And I'd start grabbing veggies like the green beans. She also had spinach and cucumbers, she said. And I would just start, trying to eat them and put them in my mouth and, sucking on them, dirt and everything. I didn't care that they weren't clean. And she was like, you were worse for the garden than the rabbits. You ate so much more. And apparently I would just sit out there and just and munch on veggies while she was, working in the garden. But as a kid, I became a veggie hater. I hated vegetables so much. And my parents were so frustrated with it. And it caused actually a lot of traumatic moments for me. We fought a lot about food, which is hard when you're fat. We fought a lot about food, and a lot of it had to do with vegetables. And, she never thought to just leave all the veggies raw and maybe leave a little dirt on them, make them my style. And now, not only do I eat a lot more veggies in general, but I eat a lot less like meat. And I'm much better at grabbing like veggies for snacks. I could just sit there with carrots and just eat those, just eat those raw. When my family is making cooked carrots, they'll leave a couple uncooked so I can still have like carrot with my meal. I can't cook it. It ruins it for me. I like that crispy, fresh, kind of cool vibe you get from fresh veggies, just like a bunny. So thank you, Jimmy. I'm definitely a little bit more mindful about, the veggies and leaves and stuff I get. I'm not just making salads with romaine. I'll grab the kale and the spinach and stuff. Let's try it out. If Jimmy likes it, maybe I'll like it. So I actually eat a lot more like a rabbit now. Shortly after getting Jimmy, within a year or two, I was in college and I got reinterested in witchcraft. And once I was a little bit more tuned in to energy and stuff like that, I could really see the effects of Jimmy and his energy everywhere in the house all the time. And it really, really made me smile. He brought this happy, jumpy kind of energy. He was always jumping around or hopping around. He ran real fast through the rooms and he kicked up a lot of energy when he ran. He liked to push that beach ball into tiny little spots where that beach ball didn't have to go. He ate so many of my houseplants, but it was so cute because he's just like crawling up in a greenhouse to eat my houseplant, eat my basil, just decimate my mugwort, and even dried, crusty, dead jasmine leaves he went nuts for. And those are some of the herbs that I use for magic, and they have crystals in the dirt, and those are the plants that he loved. It always made me laugh. And, he shed like a bitch. Rabbits shed like crazy. So twice a year they have shedding season, and they shed out like an entire other rabbit's worth of fur, and it's just everywhere. Like rabbit tumbleweeds blowing through the house. And it was awful. But, the springtime one was always like, oh my God, yeah. He's getting fur so that he can hang out outside. We can play in the grass. I can take him outside to eat some dandelions. It's going to be the bomb. So it would get me in a good mood, even though I'm cleaning all the time. But it also got me into cleaning all the time, in the spring especially, which is when you need it. So thanks, Jimmy. Rabbits are very susceptible to the moon. Rabbits are a magical moon animal, right? And during the full moon, this rabbit was just a little extra playful and all night long. He would sleep all day. Rabbits are crepuscular, right? So morning and twilight and nighttime is when they're up anyways. But this rabbit, middle of the night, during the full moon, those are the days I'd wake up to hear, his little thuds from hopping, pushing this beach ball around with his face. It's kind of sliding a little bit. And it was just so funny. And I would always get up and just, roll it out the room, and he'd go running and have a great time and bring it on back. Otherwise, he was good at, staying in the rest of the house. But during that full moon, he was up at night and he wanted to play. Really wanted to play. So, thanks to Jimmy, I got into the habit of noticing that kind of stuff more, noticing the season change when they're coming, even before I would pick it up through my normal, the normal cues or triggers that I associate with the seasonal change. I had a different one now. I had Jimmy, and I paid more attention to the moon, and then I started kind of consciously tracking it to see if I was, making it up. Was he really different during the full moon? And yes, he really, really was. I made notes. So, that's something that's still a big part of my practice. And I don't know, I probably would have still gotten into it without Jimmy, but I like that he was a real catalyst for that, because that's a big part of a lot of my spells and rituals and stuff. I love time, right? Paying attention to it. Magic time was really, really cool. if I was sitting at, my altar and I was doing magic stuff, he was always nearby. He wanted to see what I was doing. He wanted to sit near me, sit under the desk, sit under the chair, be near my feet, especially if I was in kind of a, I was really in the zone. He would either hop around me or he would stay between the door to the room and me. And if he thought there was someone out there, or if there was someone out there, bunnies could probably see ghosts, he would thump his feet and I would hear it and know that he's protecting. He's protecting. And it was like, it was this extra little layer to the making sacred space, right? It always made me feel like, oh, good, Jimmy's here now, and he's throwing his energy into the mix, and I always really liked it. I liked that he was very interested and curious about the magical things I did. I loved that the plants that he tried to eat the most were the ones that I use for magic, and for which I add crystals or moon water or something. Like, he was clearly sensing some of that magical energy, which is so cool. He ate my mugwort plant like 3 times. He's eaten it, and it's become like a seasonal thing. At the end of the season, he cuts the mugwort back, and then it grows back throughout the spring and summer. And it's going to be really weird to have a really big mugwort next year, I guess. I'm not going to be starting from the beginning. But yeah, I loved his kind of sweet, soft, and kind of kooky energy in the magical space. I loved it. It was really, it was comforting, but it made me laugh. He made me laugh all the time. Like, he just made me laugh, and he made me really happy just watching him hop around, just being around him. It's a very funny, silly, soft, happy vibe, even when he was biting me or acting like a jerk. And he would beg like a dog out of the table and wait for me to drop some magical herbs, and I always would. Even if I wasn't using basil, I'd grab some, or parsley or whatever, and just throw it on the floor so that he can join in. But my favorite thing about that bunny energy was that everybody could feel it. Everybody that came here could feel this fun, happy, silly energy coming off of Jimmy in waves. He loved parties, and he loved when I had friends over. He didn't want anybody to touch him, but that bunny was, he was all over the dance floor, weaving in between people, and he was sneaking around the snack table, waiting for people to drop some crackers that he shouldn't have been eating. And he went and visited everybody. If someone's sitting on a chair or a couch, he's coming over and, sniffing their feet and seeing what's going on. And people loved it. People loved him, and they were like, oh my God, this is so neat. I've never had a bunny pay this much attention. And, eventually, whatever room Jimmy was in, all of the conversations would eventually become about Jimmy and how cute he is, or what he was doing, or how he was pushing this beach ball. What a Gemini. He just, he had to be in everyone's business in the party. But it was cool. I had been nervous. The first party I had with him here was a Halloween party. And I'd been kind of nervous, right? It's not just a party. It's Halloween. It can get a little bit crazy, and there's costumes and stuff. And he just, oh man, he would not stay away. He had to check everybody out and check out everyone's costume. And he was stealing little masks and stuff off the couch so he could look at it. People who weren't even animal people were like, this is so cute. It's so much fun. You'd never think that sitting around and watching a rabbit just hop around and do rabbit stuff would be incredibly entertaining, but let me tell you, it is. Even one time I was on a date. Probably the last date I ever had before I stopped dating completely. And we were sitting around, and it had gotten quiet, and we're just watching Jimmy jump around. We'd picked out a movie. We just hadn't put it on yet. And he was like, wow, you know what? I love watching this rabbit. I was like, what? He was like, yeah, what will go really great with this rabbit's vibe right now? And I'm like, what? He's like smoking a joint. And I'm like, oh, do you want to put on the movie? And he's like, no, I'm pretty cool with the rabbit. We didn't even end up watching the movie. It wasn't even like a very super important date. I didn't have crazy sex after our bunny date or anything like that. But it was probably the last time I made out with anybody. So thanks, Jimmy. He, he just made you smile and made you feel warm and comfy. So Jimmy was old. He was about to turn 9, and for Bunny, senior age is 7. So a couple years back, I was already starting to chew my fingers, hoping that, I was like, I'm going to be the person with the oldest bunny in existence, hoping for the best. So he was old. He was a senior, but that really fun, silly, and chill energy, that was just rolling off of him straight up till the end. People were still saying oh my God, he's still so cute and fun, even though he looks old and frail. And I was like, I know. He was actually, he was so playful and lively. I remember when the vet told me he was dying, I was shocked. I was like, what? No. He's got a weird little an abscess or something on his fur. And she's like, no, we've found a few of those other places, and he's kind of thin. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And, he didn't like me holding him, so I didn't often. And I held him, and I'm like, oh. And you could really feel that he had lost a little bit of weight, and he didn't fight me so hard. And that really was like, oh my God, he's not fighting. I knew he was old. I knew he had gotten a little tired, but he didn't seem scared or in pain or freaked out or sad or anything like that. He wasn't different. He was just the same. But in those last few weeks after that, he slowed down a lot. He got real tired, and he couldn't really push the beach ball around anymore. So I got some balloons in his favorite color, which was yellow. Animals have favorite colors. Don't laugh at me. That other cat I mentioned, his favorite color was purple. And this cat I got here, I'm pretty sure her favorite color is like an iridescent blue-green. Yeah, she really likes a fish scale kind of color, and she likes birds. I think it's a iridescent type green. Anyways, so Jimmy loved yellow, so I got him a bunch of yellow balloons that he could push around because they were a lot lighter. He let us touch him more and pet him more. He let me hold him on my lap, with a big comfy blanket. And he let me pet him, and he even, cuddled up real close. Especially at the vet, he came right up and, he wanted me to hold on to him. But he was still happy and fun and funny and playful, and he still made weird sounds at us. Bunnies make a lot of grunting sounds that are very odd. He was still sneaking treats and foods he shouldn't have been eating, and he tried to eat the houseplants, and whenever he had a little extra energy, he would still follow me around. So I just, I made him extra comfortable, and I spoiled him with treats. I spoiled him so hard. And I stayed home a lot. I stopped going out. I didn't work as much because I wanted to be in the room with him even. I stayed right there with him. I was afraid to leave because it's just every day I could feel that we were getting a little bit closer. So I started just, adding in some spiritual things to make him more comfortable. I was putting crystals in his food or his bed. I had a leopard skin jasper in his food bowl to, to remind him to eat and to nourish himself and to enjoy the food. I didn't mind giving him treats instead of dinner if he just wasn't going to eat his pellets or his grass or whatever. I'm like, whatever, as long as you want to eat something, that's cool. Every day, when I cleaned out and refreshed his water bowl, I put an amethyst in there to help him feel calm and at peace. I put a little rose quartz in his grass, just for some loving, comforting energy. There's a windowsill near where his little litter box and stuff is, and I decorated it with some goddesses that are associated with rabbits, some pictures from Ostara, and some more crystals like a big obsidian to banish negativity and to kind of start creating that connection with the other side. And I lit candles there every day. And I put up images of fairies. I have a little statue and I have some cards and stuff, and I put those up because I don't know, I just always imagine that, fairies are like the angels that come for animals when they die. They're the little people with wings. And it's funny because in legend, some rabbits, they accompany people to the other side or to the world of Fae, like Alice in Wonderland. So I always thought, they would do it in reverse. I got a white candle, nice white candle, and I dressed it with oil for fairy magic and for comfort and peace. And I dressed it with alfalfa and lavender and basil, which he loved, and chamomile, and put in the intention that anything that might keep him here longer. And I didn't know if he was suffering, and I didn't want him to, and if there was any chance that this was too difficult for him and that he was trying to hold on, just to let that fall away, make him feel like it was okay to go. I feel so weird saying all this. I feel so weird because I was like talking to an animal, and people think that's odd, but I know it's not. It's just, I needed him to know that he would be fine and safe, and that just like always, I was going to be there no matter what. On the day that he died, I'd woken up that morning knowing that this was it. This was our last day. It wasn't just me. My sister, she woke up in the morning and she was like, I don't think I want to go to work. I've got a bad feeling about Jimmy. So I canceled work. She didn't. She went to work. I didn't work that day. I spent the day with Jimmy. He was sitting on my lap in a cushy blanket all day. And we hung out. And gave him some treats, and he was happy, and, he was slow and didn't move around a lot, but he was pretty normal. And I'd put him down for a little while just to, get off my lap and sit on something that wasn't moving, and I was getting a snack, and then all of a sudden I was like, okay, wait, I have to go pick him up right now. So I went, I carefully put him up on my lap on that blanket. It was cool, he cleaned his face a little bit, he snuggled up a little closer, and then he stopped. And he jumped up right into my arms, like landed right on my chest. And I held on to him, and he passed away about a minute later, maybe 2. And later that night, when I went to bed, the candle that I had made for him to help him cross over or whatever, help him say goodbye, burned down that night like it got to the end that night. So perfect, right? Yeah, so, wow, this episode did not end up being any shorter than any other. I'm a chatty bitch. So I'm obviously really sad. But I am super grateful for all the time that I had with Jimmy. All of it, even when it was difficult, or even when I wasn't sure if he liked me. Even when he wouldn't let me hold him, even though he was so cute and so soft. Sorry, that's a kitten and she needs to chill. And I was really grateful that I had the chance to say goodbye and to really be there for him at the very end. And it felt just like that day at the park, I made him feel safe. I was home. There are so many ways to give and receive love, whether you're loving an animal or a person. There are so many ways. And being loved and trusted by an animal, especially one that is such a scaredy cat, like a like a rabbit, or surly like a rabbit, is a really great reminder of the power of softness and patience. Lots of patience. And just a little shift in perspective, right? And I definitely feel a difference in the house now. I'm constantly like feeling like I need to burn sage or spraying this saltwater lavender spray that I have, because energy feels weird. It feels still, like it hasn't moved. I keep turning on fans, even though like there's no reason for me to have a fan on. I'm just like, something in here needs to move around. And I noticed that a lot of those spots are spots where, Jimmy used to hang out. He used to crawl under the stuff near there and move all that energy around and kick his feet up and, eat those plants. Eat those plants, practically kill them. And I keep missing the smell of pine like I used in his cage. So I've been burning all this pine incense nonstop. And I actually I put some dried alfalfa, which I use for spells sometimes, into a little pouch, and I've just been I hung it near my bed, and the smell is really, really comforting. When I cleaned up the house, I put away his cage. I didn't want his litter box and stuff staying out forever. That's not a super fun memorial. Here's the box you pissed in. But I cleaned out the spot, and then it was just this big empty hole. There was nothing there, and I couldn't handle it. So I put this nice, big, lush houseplant. It's a spider plant that's just exploding. It's huge, and then it's got all these spider plant babies growing off of it. And that life energy, it made a really big difference. The room feels a lot better. I was having a hard time going into the living room and hanging out without him in there. But he would really like the plant. He loved all green plants. He would love this nice big plant right where he could munch on it. So that makes me feel a lot better. And these Easter decorations featuring rabbits, those are never coming down. I used to be the girl that had Halloween decorations up all year round, and now I've got Easter decorations up all year round. It's all skeletons and bunnies up in here. It's so weird. And something else weird is that all those plants that he really liked to eat, especially my Christmas cactus, he loved the flowers and the leaves, but he loved the flowers. And the jasmine, both were in bloom and have suddenly stopped. Jasmine has no more flowers, and that poor thing looks like it's gonna die. And the Christmas cactus is still growing, but all the pink little flowers just fell off like a day later. I wonder if they miss them. Super quiet in the house, too. I never thought a bunny made so much noise that I enjoyed hearing or that I paid attention to, but man, is it quiet in here. It's really weird. I mean, that kitten is very annoying and she helps. So that's good. Yeah. So rabbit energy is, it's silly. It's silly and it's super soft and surprising. You never know what they're going to do. It's very joyful and chill, but there's definitely this air of resilience and vigilance, right? And strength. Bunnies are strong and tough, territorial. He protected me, even though, he's definitely the prey in this house. And some of those times he was thumping at cats, not just, invisible things, but cats. And those cats really could have hurt him and probably wouldn't have hurt me. But, he got between us and he thumped his feet and he made himself, this alpha animal. He created this illusion of incredible strength and size because he has these massive ass feet, right? Super loud. That thumping is wild. It can wake you up in the dead of night. So that energy that rabbits have, I still really feel connected to that soft, but not willing to fuck myself over vibe that rabbits have. I still really super relate to that. And, yeah, I'll probably always love rabbits. Probably always. I'm definitely going to get myself another one, just not for a while. Not until I find one. You know, we got to connect. We got to be friends. And in a lot of places, rabbits are a symbol of good luck. And it's no wonder. I've always felt so lucky. To have earned, you know, the love and the trust of my little bunny friend. Always. And I really hope through this surprisingly long, teary episode that Jimmy Hoppa has kind of shown you why, you know, all of that is really special. Like I said, if you want to learn some of the practical rabbit magic stuff, like if you have a rabbit, also if you want to share pictures of your rabbit with me, oh my God, that's cool. You can totally tag me in that, that's fine. But if you want to learn some of that practical stuff about applying rabbit energy to your magical practice or working with your own rabbit, if you want to see Jimmy in all of his grumpy, fluffy glory, you know, biting me and causing a scene, I'll put a link to the Seeker's Corner episode in the description and make sure that you guys can find it if you ever want to see it. So thank you for listening to me talk about my best friend. I genuinely did not expect this to go on so long. And I'm probably not going to do a whole lot of editing because it would just be me, you know, canceling out all of this. I'd be trying to make myself sound less weepy, and that's just not going to happen. I'd be taking out half the episode. So thanks. I miss him so much. But, man, that time together, that will, no doubt, continue to infuse my life with magic for years to come. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. Next week, there won't be a podcast episode or a Seeker's Corner episode. I guess, you know, I'm still catching up. But if you check the events on my Facebook page, you can see everything that I've got coming up in the future. As I said, thank you for listening. And, you know, hug all of your friends, human or animal, and just let them know how much you love them.